Do you ever find yourself staring at the shampoo bottle in the shower, having an imaginary argument with your boss or your ex? Sometimes you even get so carried away that you start talking out loud, waving your hands, as if they're actually standing in front of you. If someone overheard you today, they'd probably think, yep, they've finally lost it, and quietly walk away. Congratulations. 50,000 years ago, if you had done the exact same thing around a campfire, you would have become your tribe's newest spiritual leader. We've become obsessed with the idea of being normal. If someone struggles to get out of bed, we immediately invent a sophisticated sounding syndrome. We join Zoom meetings wearing pajamas below the camera, pretending to save the world, and at the slightest inconvenience, we wonder, is my anxiety acting up again? While sipping an overpriced oat milk latte. Life is supposed to look like a perfectly organized Excel spreadsheet. Anyone who steps even slightly outside the lines, someone who talks to themselves, shouts a little too loudly, or behaves differently, is quickly handed over to a clinic and labeled toxic. But what about the first humans? There were no psychologists, no prescriptions, no diagnostic manuals. Imagine a world swallowed by darkness. Predators lurk beyond the firelight. Every night is a fight against fear. Then, one member of the tribe suddenly begins trembling, speaking to invisible people, seeing things no one else can see, or collapsing into violent seizures. The tribe didn't say, something's wrong with him, throw him out. Quite the opposite. They gathered around him because they believed an incredibly powerful spirit, nature itself, had entered his body. He became their connection to the invisible world. The dreams, visions, and hallucinations of these madmen were believed to reveal where animal herds would migrate, when the rains would come, and what dangers lay ahead. The people we now call insane were humanity's first GPS. But here is where history gets even weirder. Being the crazy one was such a massive privilege that eventually people didn't want to wait for it to happen naturally. They started chasing madness. They realized they could hack their own minds. They boiled strange mushrooms. They chewed on toxic roots. They licked the backs of poisonous frogs. They locked themselves in pitch-black caves for days, depriving themselves of food and water, just to hear those voices. Madness wasn't a disease. It was a VIP lounge, and everyone wanted a ticket. But sometimes the spirit they invited in refused to leave. The signal grew distorted. The chosen one would begin hurting himself. So, what was the solution? They drilled a hole into his skull with a sharp stone, without anesthesia. Yes, an actual hole. They believed the evil spirit needed a way out, or that the divine force inside simply needed room to breathe. Here's the astonishing part. Many of these people survived. They lived for years with a coin-sized opening in their skulls, becoming some of the most respected shamans in their tribes. But that's not even the strangest part. What do you think happened to the circular piece of skull they removed? Did they throw it away? No, they threaded it onto a cord and wore it around their necks, because they believed a fragment taken from the skull of a shaman possessed extraordinary magical power, an amulet capable of protecting its wearer from evil. Today, when you get a migraine, you close the curtains, crawl into bed, and wait for the pain to pass. Thousands of years ago, a man with a crater in his head was leading an entire tribe, while pieces of his skull were treasured like priceless jewelry. And this is where the real question begins. What changed? How did these sacred people become the patients we lock inside psychiatric hospitals? The answer is surprisingly simple. Fences. When humans discovered agriculture and surrounded their fields with fences, they also invented property. Property demanded order. Order demanded rules. Rules demanded workers who would wake up on time, obey instructions, and fit neatly into society. Suddenly, those who heard strange voices, challenged convention, or wandered outside the boundaries were no longer spiritual leaders. They became threats. The radio to the spirit world was unplugged. The fall from grace was brutal. By the Middle Ages, the people who would have been revered around ancient campfires were now tied to wooden stakes and burned as witches. The divine spirit was renamed demonic possession, and a few centuries later, it got even worse. We built asylums, places like Bedlam in London. In the 1800s, madness wasn't just a sickness, it was cheap entertainment. For a penny, perfectly normal families would buy a ticket on a Sunday afternoon, stroll through the asylum, and point and laugh at the patients kept in cages like zoo animals. From sacred shamans guiding humanity to circus freaks, divine inspiration became diagnosis. Sacredness became illness. Today, we treat madness as a virus that must be cured as quickly as possible. But from an evolutionary perspective, madness may have been humanity's research and development department. When everyone else hid inside caves during a thunderstorm, someone had to walk toward the lightning and wonder if the sky was trying to speak. The ordinary people kept us alive. The extraordinary ones made us human. They created mythology, religion, article, the impossible ideas that pushed civilization forward. The voices inside their heads changed the voices inside ours. Madness was the boldest gamble human nature ever made. So tomorrow morning, when you find yourself arguing with a shampoo bottle in the shower, and someone catches you talking to yourself, don't be embarrassed. Look into the mirror. Take a deep breath, and remember, you're not necessarily a broken piece that society needs to repair. You're carrying a tiny fragment of the strange, sacred, and wonderfully irrational inheritance that once inspired entire tribes to follow a single human being into the unknown. Now, put the shampoo bottle back. Your tribe is waiting.